Hello, hello to you and 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 you. It is story time with Dan, the story man from Sapphire Theater. You know, I've been challenged over the weeks. Hey, Dan, do you really think you can find a story dealing with any problem I have? Any problem you have. What? Is your brother or sister messing with you? Do your parents make you eat vegetables? Do you have to do chores and you don't want to? I am the man for you. I have all the answers in a book just for you. This week, we are dealing with bullies. Dun, 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 dun. Have you ever been a bully? Yeah. Have you ever seen someone getting bullied and didn't know what to do? Well, this is the book for you. Bully on the Bench by Darrell Lee Morton Jr. This book deals with three characters. There's a bully, there's someone being bullied, then there's a bystander, someone who's standing around watching it all, but not really sure what to do. Let's dig in this book and find out what they do. Bully on the Bench. It was nearing the end of class, and Mr. Lee was assigning group projects. A mix of cheers and groans could be heard as students learned who their partners were. The bell rang, and everyone began gathering their things and mingling as they exited the classroom. Freddie was zipping his book bag when big Rodney walked over. Can you believe Mr. Lee put that new, weird little kid in our group? That's Anson, said Freddie. His family bought a house on my block. What kind of name is Anson, said Rodney. How about we ask him while we research our topic, said Freddie. Rodney frowned. Freddie continued. Rodney, he's our partner on this assignment. And since my last report card was awful, I gotta get an A. I'm going to the media center to get a head start. I'll catch you later at practice. Yeah, later, said Rodney as Freddie walked away. As he entered the U Street Community Middle School Media Center, Freddie noticed Anson sitting at a table reading a book. He tapped him on the shoulder and sat down. You doing research already, said Freddie. Yup, replied Anson. I'm going to be very busy next week, so I wanted to get a jump on our group project. I didn't work as hard as I should have on the last group project, so I need to do well on this one, said Freddie. Is Rodney coming? Asked Anson. Nah, but I'll see him at baseball practice, Freddie replied. I'm going to baseball practice today too, said Anson. A puzzled look swept across Freddie's face. Are you taking team pictures for the yearbook club or something? Freddie asked. No, I'm joining the team, Anson replied. Coach Carrollton told me he could use me. I was on the baseball team in my school last year. Then I guess I'll see you at practice, said Freddie. A few hours later, on the baseball field, Coach Carrollton gathered the team in the dugout. Gentlemen, you all know that Carlos broke his foot in our last game, which leaves us with an open spot as we get ready for the district semifinal game against Satchel Paige Middle School. Anson transferred to our school right before school break. I've asked him to join us for the remainder of the season. The dugout stayed quiet. As you can see, he wears a hearing aid, but don't feel like you have to yell because he's a pretty good lip reader. Right, Anson? Coach looked directly at Anson, but he didn't respond. Suddenly, Anson smiled. I got you, Coach. I was just messing with you. Everyone on the team, including Coach Carrollton, laughed. Everyone, that is, except Rodney. Very funny, Anson. You'll fit right in on this team. Today, I want you to shadow Rodney, said Coach. Freddie felt worried when he heard this. He knew how Rodney felt about Anson. Everyone get to your positions, Coach Carrollton shouted. The players ran to their defensive spots. Anson jogged behind Rodney as they headed to left field. Just as Freddie feared, Rodney wasn't friendly towards him at all. "Come here, little boy," he said. Anson looked away, pretended not to understand. Rodney pointed at Anson. "I'm talking to you, little boy." Anson read Rodney's lips, but looked away again. No one had ever called him names before. Rodney walked closer to Anson. He was very tall. He leaned down, then whispered, "You might not be able to hear me, but read my lips. You're too little to play baseball. You should just quit and go home, little boy." The bus ride home after practice was quiet. As the bus came to a stop, Freddie tapped Anson on the shoulder. "Did you have fun today?" "Not really," Anson said as he got up from his seat and left the bus. Looking from the window, Freddie watched Anson trudge towards his house, his head hanging low as the bus drove away. Freddie was still thinking about Anson that night at dinner with his family. His dad, a college professor who had just returned from Kenya, asked him how school had been. "It's okay," Freddie said. "We got another group assignment from Mr. Lee." "Group assignment, huh? Did you pick your own partners this time?" Mr. Chandler asked. "No," said Freddie. "Mr. Lee selected the teams." "Who are you working with?" his dad replied. "Rodney from the baseball team and the new kid at the end of the block named Anson," said Freddie. "Anson," Mrs. Chandler said. "His mother called right before dinner. She thought he was having a problem at school." "Freddie, do you know anything about that?" Freddie continued eating but hung his head down and didn't reply. Suddenly, Mr. Chandler responded in a stern voice. "Freddie, I know you hear your mother talking. Answer her question, son," he said. Slowly, Freddie raised his head and began to speak, but very softly. "We can't hear you, son. Speak up," said Mr. Chandler. "Rodney's been picking on Anson," said Freddie. "Well, what did your teacher or principal say when you told them that a student was being bullied?" said Mr. Chandler. Freddie looked away, then said, "I didn't tell anyone." Mr. and Mrs. Chandler looked at each other. Freddie looked away, then said, "I didn't tell anyone." Mr. and Mrs. Chandler looked at each other when they heard this. They were not happy. "That makes you just as bad as the bully," Mrs. Chandler said. Maybe Rodney was just messing around," Freddie said. "So you think it's okay to stand by and watch another person being bullied?" Mr. Chandler asked. Hearing this, Freddie felt ashamed. He dropped his head, then replied, "No, sir, it's not okay," he said. "What are you going to do, son?" said Mr. Chandler. But before Freddie could answer, Mrs. Chandler said, "Well, I told Anson's mother to call and report the problem to the school. I'm also going to call the school first thing in the morning," she said. "I'll ask you again, Fred. What are you going to do?" Freddie's dad was looking at him, waiting. Freddie took a long, deep breath. "I will talk to Rodney during lunch tomorrow," he said. The next day at lunch, Freddie carried his tray and sat down across the table from Rodney. "I figured you'll be sitting with your new itty-bitty friend today," Rodney said, laughing. "Did you see the pictures I posted on the internet? I've got half the school laughing at that kid." "Come on, Rodney," said Freddie. "Hey, what's the problem? He can't hear me anyway." Rodney slapped his hand on the table as he delivered the punchline. A few girls near him started to laugh. Freddie got upset. "Rodney, you need to stop making fun of Anson." "Oh, I see," Rodney said, looking serious. "So you're sticking up for him now." Freddie continued. "You've made fun of his name, talked about his size, joked about his hearing, and called him weird. He didn't name himself. His parents did. He has no control over how tall he is. And the reason he can't hear the way you and I do is because of something that happened to his mom when he was born, Freddie said. When I talked to Anson myself, I found out that his grandfather played 3 seasons for the Cincinnati Reds, which is your favorite team. I know all these things because I took the time to get to know him. The fact that you haven't and kept making fun of him is really what's weird, said Freddie. Then he picked up his lunch and moved to another table to finish eating. After school Friday, the baseball team was in the dugout preparing to play in the district semifinal game. Some players were talking amongst themselves while others stretched their arms and legs. Rodney sat alone. Suddenly, Coach Carrollton came to the dugout and called the team together. He did not look happy. I had a long meeting with Principal Bland today, he began. The principal shared reports that came to his office that made him very unhappy. I'm not happy either. He will be making an all-school announcement Monday morning and sending home a letter to all families soon after. Making fun of another person, spreading rumors about someone, pushing, hitting, and even making a person feel uncomfortable is bullying. Bullying is wrong and will not be tolerated now or ever at our school or our teams, he said, scanning the players' faces. Do you all understand? Everyone replied, yes, Coach. Will everyone except Rodney? Okay, now it's game time. Let's go win, Coach shouted. As the team jogged out to the field to warm up, Coach Carrollton asked Rodney to wait behind. Rodney, he said, I don't think it's right to call you out in front of a group, so I wanted to speak to you alone. I'm very disappointed in you. I know that you've been bullying other students in our school and also Anson, our new teammate. If I hear of you bullying anyone else, you will never play for any teams here at U Street Community Middle School again. Hearing this, tears started to form in Rodney's eyes. Do you understand me? Coach Carrollton asked. Yes, sir, Rodney replied. Good, Coach said. You're sitting out of today's game. But Coach, Rodney protested, it's the semifinals. Think about this moment the next time you get the notion of bully. You want to bully? Then you'll bully on the bench. My decision is final, Coach replied. Rodney dropped his head and began to cry. Get it together, Rod. It's game time, said Coach as he pat Rodney on the shoulder. Both teams were playing great, and the score was tied at 3. The last batter for Satchel Paige Middle School struck out, which sent the game into the bottom half of the final inning. Things started with a bang for U Street Community Middle as Hoy hit a ball deep in the outer field, flying over the center fielder's glove and rolling into the fence. Quickly rounding first, Hoy slid safely into second base. However, he slid and twisted his ankle and soon had to be taken out of the game. Coach Carrollton had only 2 players left to put on the field. Rodney, who was one of the best and fastest players on the team, and Anson, who hadn't played a single game for the school yet. Anson, grab a helmet. You're in, Coach yelled. The other players were shocked. Coach, Hoy said, we need Rodney. He's the fastest on the team. Coach ignored him, then yelled again, get out there, Anson, let's go. The winner of this game would advance to the district championship. So tension was high on the field as Anson jogged on. 2 of U Street's players, Dewey and Rick, struck out. Freddie came up next and quickly got 2 strikes. In the dugouts, players from both teams stood and cheered. The excitement even got to Rodney, who joined in. Rodney looked to Anson at one point, motioned his hands, and shouted, "Anson, be ready to run as soon as Freddie hits the ball." As the pitch came to the plate, Freddie swung his bat and hit the ball hard. It looped over the glove of the second baseman into right field. Anson took off as fast as he could, racing from second base, rounding third, then heading home. The right fielder picked up the ball and threw it to the catcher. The ball arrived at the plate, and the catcher tagged Anson on the leg as he slid into home plate. The players in the dugout groaned. Anson was the third out. Just then, the umpire saw the ball fall out of the catcher's glove and roll near the plate. "Safe!" he yelled. The players in the U Street dugout ran out onto the field towards home plate to celebrate. Rodney, the fastest player on the team, was first to arrive. "Way to go, Anson," he yelled as the rest of the team cheered. "We did it, we did it. We're going to the ship. We're going to the ship," yelled Freddie. As the team continued to celebrate the victory, Rodney pulled Anson away from the group. "I'm sorry for calling you names and treating you bad. I was wrong, and I apologize," he said. "Apology accepted," Anson said. They both smiled and shook hands as Freddie walked over. "You know," Freddie said, "we haven't worked on that group project from Mr. Lee. It's due next Wednesday, and the championship game is Friday." Anson and Rodney nodded as Freddie spoke. "Hey, since tomorrow is Saturday, let's meet at the library and get it done," Anson said. "I'm in," said Rodney. "In," said Freddie. "Hey, Anson," said Rodney, "I hear your grandfather played 3 seasons for the Cincinnati Reds." Surprised, Anson responded slowly. "Well, yeah," he said. "My grandfather played the organ, music, and video replays on the big scoreboard in the stadium during the games." "Hold it! Freddie told me," Rodney began, but Freddie barged in. "Got you!" Freddie shouted as they all began to laugh as they walked toward their family and friends, waiting in the stands to congratulate him. The end. Ah, that was such a great story. So tell me the truth. Are you more of a Rodney, a Anson, or a Freddie? Make sure that if you are a Freddie, that you take up for those people. Be a friend. Show them that 2 people are always greater than 1. If you have a problem that you would like to share, please email me at daniel@sapphiretheater.com. I would love to help you with your problems. Find a book and let's read it together. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.